Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you guys can tell by the title, this is going to be my unexpected labor and delivery vlog. Just a fair warning, if I'm going to be looking at my phone, it's because I have points written down that I want to talk about, because I have tried to film this video multiple times and every single time I have always left something out. So that's why. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it. So my actual due date was scheduled to be August 7th, 2019. And Nathan was breech. So I remember going to the doctor and my OB telling me like a while back that, you know, he was breech. So we had up until a certain time where he would like flip by himself. And he still never flipped. She gave me the option to have that procedure where they actually like turn him like on my stomach. And I just heard really bad things about that. I was kind of nervous, so I just said, you know what, how about we just do a C-section? She agreed without me even thinking of a C-section, and just jumping right into it, I think was my biggest regret, because I don't think I educated myself enough on C-sections, but we'll get into that later. We ended up scheduling a planned C-section for July 29th, 2019, but the morning of July 15th, a quick little back story here, I had gestational diabetes, so because of that I needed to follow a strict diet. So I needed to be able to get up and have breakfast. I think it was around 9, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, being in the third trimester, I'm just so tired, so I just knew that I had to get up. I had to take my insulin, I had to check my blood sugar levels. I ended up getting up around, I think, 9. And I went upstairs, and at this time I was still living at my parents' house, and I had breakfast. But mind you, the last few days before leading up to July 15th, I was experiencing so many contractions, and I thought, you know, it's probably just the Braxton Hicks, because it's preparing me for actual labor. After I had breakfast, I went back to bed, and then I woke up and I went back upstairs. I believe it was around 11:30, 12 o'clock. And my sister was at the kitchen table. As I think I took like 4 steps into the kitchen, and right away I just felt something completely leak out of me. I was thinking, okay, what the heck is that? So I look, it's my mucus plug. It's like, okay, to my sister, I just lost my mucus plug. I think I'm gonna call the hospital and just explain what happened and see if they want me to come in or not. I just thought, you know what, better safe than sorry. And I just had a feeling that I was having him that day. This is a little bit TMI. I was having a lot of pressure in like my butt, and I recall so many people telling me that you experience that right before you're about to give birth and be in labor. That's what I had, and so I thought, you know what, it's better safe than sorry. I might as well just go in and get checked, and worst comes to worst, I just go home. Like, no big deal. And I was trying to call my boyfriend. He was currently working, and I did get a hold of my mom. So my sister drove me. And it's so funny because I'm having contractions, I lost my mucus plug, and my sister's like, come on, Coral, let's go, let's go. Like, she was so worried for me, but I was just so calm, and I felt so relaxed in a way, even though I was having contractions. I was like, wait, I want to grab my hospital bag, I want to grab the car seat, I want to grab my pregnancy pillow, I want to grab so many things that were already packed, but I wanted to grab it. I also did my makeup in the car because I knew I was having him that day. Like, I just knew. Sure enough, we get to the hospital and my boyfriend was already there, and so was my mom. Right away, like, we went up to OB triage and we checked in. I explained to them that I had lost my mucus plug, what I thought was my my mucus plug, that I had a planned C-section for July 29th, so that was exactly 2 weeks from the day that I went in. So from the 15th to the 29th, it's exactly 2 weeks. I was just explaining how I had a planned C-section for that day. So they brought me into a room and they checked me. She said I was in early active labor, so it was my mucus plug that came out, and I was a good 2 centimeters dilated. At this point, I was like, okay, like that's great news. She said, you know what, I'm just gonna call the on-call doctor and see if he can fit you in today. And I said, okay. Sure enough, he was able to fit me in. I got to the hospital around like 12:30, and I ended up having him at 3:31 p.m. So it was very fast. So after she told me that he could fit me in and that I was having him that day, she then ended up giving me an IV. And now that was probably my biggest fear. I know I've had IVs when I've been put to sleep so they could take out my wisdom teeth and whatnot, but like I just had a fear of it for some reason, and I don't have fears of needles. Needles don't bother me. She tried to do it and she blew a vein. So that was my biggest fear, and sure enough it happened. So then she ended up having to do another one right here, and that one was fine. After she did that, we just had to fill out a few paperwork, and then she asked if I was okay to actually just walk to the room where I was having my C-section. So I said yes. Trevor and I just walked there. The doctor that was doing my C-section asked me if I had any special requests, and I just said yes. Once you take him out, can you show me him, please? That was a beautiful moment, and I think that for all of my future kids, I will definitely do that if I have a C-section. The one thing that I didn't know you were allowed to ask for was to have skin to skin right away, like still on the table. I didn't know you could do that. So again, with my future kids, if I do end up having a C-section, I'm definitely going to ask for the skin to skin because I would have really liked to have that. Oh, and by the way, the bed for a C-section is so small. It is so thin, and when I saw it, I was like, what? That's how you're gonna operate? I mean, then I started to think about it, and it's like, well, you know, they need so many people. There was probably at least 10 people in there, like doctors and nurses and NICU nurses, and it was full of people. They gave me the spinal tap. That was a whole different story. So once I got in and I sat on the bed, they just went over a few things with me, and then it was time to do the spinal tap. And that was the second thing that I was mostly scared for, because you know, you just hear about it, you don't know really what to expect. Make you sit on the edge of the bed and curl up and like kind of stick out your back. I bent over and he tried, but every time it hurt. Like, to me it hurt. So I jumped, and I know you're not supposed to, because you could actually become paralyzed if you move one way that you shouldn't. You could become paralyzed. So that was always in the back of my head, like, oh, try not to move, try not to move. But it hurt a lot. So 4 times he had to do that. 4 times, because I kept like moving and jumping. He finally was able to do that, and he had said, as soon as we put the fluid in, we need to hurry up and lay you directly onto the bed because of how fast the spinal tap makes you numb. And when he said that, I think I blinked my eyes and I was already laying down. Like, it was extremely fast. When you have a spinal tap and when you have an epidural, you have to have a catheter, because after you give birth, you need to wait until the numbness goes away, which is roughly, they told me, about 6 to 8 hours, depending on other people, but for me it was 6 to 8 hours. They put a catheter inside, which I really wanted to be numb for that, and I wasn't. They didn't wait long enough. They kind of just did it because, I mean, it's their job and they have to get going, but I thought for sure that I was going to be more numb, but I completely felt it, and it was extremely uncomfortable. After that, Trevor did come in. He was completely all ground up. They were just talking to me about have the oxygen mask over my face, because in a C-section with all the pressure and like pulling the baby out, your oxygen levels drop tremendously. So once they had taken him out, I could remove the oxygen mask. I remember them asking if I could feel this, so I think before they cut me open, they took clamps, I guess, and they went where my scar is, clamped it to see if I had any feeling. And the anesthesiologist was telling me how if I felt that, I would have screamed so loud. He was like, so it's a good thing that you are completely numb. So I kind of just laughed at that. I felt like my whole C-section went by so fast because I know laying there was maybe 20 minutes and I heard Nathan crying. Our doctor said, I see a penis, so it's definitely a boy. And we kind of just laughed at that. He was a really funny doctor, and I think that really made me so much more calm rather than like a doctor that didn't say anything to us or just kind of did their job and left. It was really nice to have that kind of connection. The nurse came over and held up Nathan to us. That was such a special moment. It makes me like very emotional just thinking back to it, because like when you first see your baby, it's just so many emotions that nobody ever knows until it actually happens. It's just beautiful. They go over, they clean up Nathan, and then they come and bring Nathan to Trevor. I just remember so much pressure right when they were about to pull him out. Believe it or not, I was strapped down to the bed like that, and my entire body was just moving and moving and moving, and I felt like I was on a boat. It didn't bother me at all. I don't know what medication they gave me, but from this day on, I still think that my son's birth and the entire day itself is a blur. From these moments after having him, it's a complete blur, and I hate that. I hate it because your child's birth is one of the days that you want to remember the most and you want to relive. And for me, it's, of course I want to relive it and do it all over again. I would in a heartbeat, but it's just that I don't remember a lot of it, and it's very unfortunate. I remember though the doctor was joking around with us again. I said, don't forget my placenta. And he made a joke and said, oh crap, we forgot it. And then he started laughing. I was like, no, I'm 2 layers away from being done. That went by really fast. Once he was done, Trevor and the baby went into my recovery room, and they needed to put me onto my recovery bed. And now by doing this, they had told me, you will feel like you were falling onto the floor just because of how we do it. And I said, okay. He was right. I don't know if it's the medication, messes you up a little bit, but I felt like I was going to be falling right on the floor for that split second. But then I went into my recovery bed, and I went into the recovery room, which I think you're normally supposed to be in the recovery room for like 2 hours. I was only in there for 1 hour because they needed the room for an emergency. Me, Trevor, and Nathan, we all just relaxed in there for an hour, and then they moved us to our postpartum room, which at this time my family left to give us a little bit of time just to settle in and everything, so they went and got lunch. And that was perfect because I think me, Trevor, and Nathan could actually spend time as the 3 of us and just enjoy it. Once all of our family members came back from their lunch and everyone was in the room, we then announced his name. So our sweet baby boy, Nathan James Coppicer, was born at 3:31 p.m., weighing in at 8 pounds, 6 ounces, and 20 inches long. Now, going over the first night. The first night was awful. I think it's because, well, one, like I said, the medication that I was on, just, it made me there, but not really. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I felt aware, and I felt like I was completely normal, but I wasn't. Like, I wasn't giving off any reaction to my boyfriend when he was talking to me. Like, I just was very mellow, I guess you would say. Yeah, it was different. But the first night was awful because since Nathan was a C-section, he had so much fluid on his lungs. He was choking all of the time, and it didn't help because they wanted him to lay completely flat on his back in the bassinet. He was just continuously choking, and I was so uncomfortable with that. So eventually I told the nurses, like, you know, I'm not comfortable with that. Like, we have to prop him up because he is choking right now and he has obviously too much fluid still. I ended up tilting it, so that was good. After that, Nathan did a lot better. I breastfed him. So for a little bit over a year, I breastfed Nathan. When I was at the hospital, I remember beating myself up so bad because, mind you, I had the C-section. So your milk normally doesn't come in if you have a C-section for like 3 to 5 days. Mine came in the 4th day. But I remember sitting there and trying to get out as much as I can. I just was beating myself up. I know I just had him. I thought that's what my body was meant to do, is like have this colostrum for him. It was really hard. They wanted me to track every single time I fed him, every single time he went to the bathroom, but they kept telling me from when the babies are 1 to like 3 days old, they barely need anything because their stomachs are super tiny. I did see a lactation consultant. When I ended up going home, I right away used my pump. And I didn't really think about it there because they do offer the Medela. I should have used it because when I went home and I pumped, I got like a whole bottle full, which was so weird because at the hospital, like, I was hand expressing and I could barely get drops. Like, Trevor tried, I even had my sister try because my hands were just hurting and like I was just pushing down on myself so much. I think it also had to do with the fact that I wasn't drinking enough water. I barely even ate. I felt like I was there and like aware, but I just wasn't. But I will get more into like all of my breastfeeding and everything like that in my future video. After we had him, we ended up going to my boyfriend's house. And we stayed there for I think 2 weeks because his family was actually going out of town, so it was just me, Trevor, and Nathan in the house ourselves. So that worked out really well. That's really about it for my labor and delivery story. It was just very unexpected. Nobody knew that I was going to have him that day. It just happened. I wouldn't change it for the world because I absolutely love that his day is on the 15th. It has a special meaning to us. But before I end this video, I'm going to introduce you to my son, Nathan. And this is Nathan. Can you wave hi? He can say like 6 words. He walks, he runs. He is so sweet. He will be 15 months on October 15th. He's a busy boy. But I think that's it for this video, so don't forget to give it a huge thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Put my favorite song on, I put my feet up, and we just sing along.